Hey, what's going on YouTube? John Lee here with another awesome video. So in this video, I want to talk a little bit about America and what that means to me and the way that our current administration has allowed every single aspect of the fabric of our country just crumble and shambles. Without any further ado, let's just jump right in. So I have some issues with the divide and the indoctrination or whatever the fuck the word is with our educational institutions. So I kind of want to just start at the beginning. So I voted for Joe Biden, okay? I had family at the time and I first and foremost want to say that's not the president that I voted for. When it comes to pussy grabbing and cocksucker arrogance and all this stuff, and I had family pressure to vote Democratic, and how dare I, vote for Trump, and, it was such a disgrace. Well, then when not my President Biden, took office, it was just a shit show from the beginning. So let's kind of just do a recap, and I'll try to make this brief, but there's a lot that goes into the biggest nightmare of American history by any U.S. president in 2 fucking years. So it all started with the election. And then I realized no sooner than Biden took office with his black, African, dark-colored, whatever you want to call her, state attorney general from California, the most liberal fucking state out there. The issue is that we have now seen how far liberal is too left. For the longest time, we kind of kept things to a minimum, and we kind of had a general consensus that out of the best interest of our children, our families, and our communities, and our country, that things didn't need to go too far liberal, too far left. Now, we obviously don't want to be stuck in the 10th century as far as, being better people. We have better technology, we have better health and medicine, we have better lives than we've ever had in the history of mankind. We've increased, and there's a lot of things that's been going on lately that's really gotten me to think about a lot of things and to reflect on, where we're at, where our country's going moving forward, and how I feel about the whole situation. So in the beginning, I thought it was racist for Biden to just say, hey, I want a black female as a vice president. That's just my first thought. He took somebody who was an attorney general who was very far left and liberal and decided, that's the agenda that I want to push, and he's been pushing it for a long time. I didn't really do my due diligence and research on. So what we were all told for the longest time is that the Republicans are all for big business and, control and all of this shameful stuff. But after voting for Biden and seeing the way that things have gone, and not just the United States, but around the world since Biden has taken office, the way the election rolled out, the coronavirus, the CDC panel, all of the pharmaceutical companies, the distrust, the disinformation, the censorship, everything has just crumbled. The mutilation of pubescent children, and it turns out there's a lot of stuff that people aren't considering. There's a lot of stuff that people just don't take into consideration. Like pushing this agenda of let's put men and women in the workforce together, experiment for the last 40, 50 years, But let's just make it interesting by not drawing any kind of clear expectations on sexualization in the workplace and what that means, both for men and women. I would say that's been a total fail. Encouraging the no-fault divorce, encouraging single motherhood, encouraging... There are more poor people now than there ever was before. And the best time to be a human, the most abundant, technologically savvy era of humankind, and so many people still feel like victims. They feel like they're attacked. They feel like it's just not good enough. So what did I learn from that election? I learned that ultimately our commander-in-chief cannot be trusted. And I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking about Biden. Something really needs to be said. So many things need to be said about this Black Lives Matter movement, this transgenderism, this censorship, this compelled speech like pronouns. We don't even know what a woman is anymore. The Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson couldn't even answer this. Hardly anybody. Matt Walsh did the documentary. Nobody knows what a fucking woman is. Everybody seems to be confused. And all of this shit has been indoctrinated throughout the country in the name of diversity, inclusion, and equity. Now, what it should be based in is integrity. Because now, for some reason, we're raising a bunch of confused little pieces of panty-waist little pieces of shit that have no respect for anybody whatsoever. Now, my generation, we grew up questioning authority. I feel like all generations do. We've moved away from the church, and we see where that's gotten us. We've allowed this no-fault divorce law to dictate basically the deconstruction of the nuclear family. A man and a woman, they create children, and then they have children, and that, brings the circle all the way back around of life. And so let's just back up a little bit more and talk about how we've incentivized the single mother parenthood. We have demonized masculinity, the very thing that makes men capable of providing and protecting for their family is now been demonized. We call it toxic masculinity. We call it toxic masculinity, but we don't consider toxic femininity an issue. Toxic is toxic, no matter who you are. This whole Black Lives Matter, all lives fucking matter. Like, this isn't fucking news to anybody. Why are we still experiencing racism? Why is racism still a problem in 2022 where we've got so many goddamn affirmative action laws in place that, give me one example of a racist law that is still actively on the books today. Like, the only reason that we still have racism being an issue is because it's being indoctrinated into our fucking institutional education. If we didn't teach our kids that racism was what held them back, and being poor and impoverished and minorities and victims and all this shit, if we didn't teach them that this was how you get by, this is how you get ahead in life. See, with all this technology and medical breakthroughs and advancement in modern medicine, we have made lives easy for ourselves. Life is not supposed to be easy. It has taken humans thousands and hundreds of thousands of years to evolve to what we are today. We have clothes, we have gear, we have houses, we have homes, indoor plumbing. 200 years ago, 100 years ago, these were all things that people didn't take for granted. And now we do take it for granted. We have no character. We have no experience. We have no ability to grab ourselves from the bootstraps and either defend ourselves, fight back against bullies. We have no ability to think for ourselves, to formulate our own opinions. We have no ability to use critical thinking or the scientific method to explain anything. We have no reason to do anything with our lives. Nobody wants to work anymore. If that isn't news to anybody, I don't know what is. But why is it that nobody wants to work? Is it that we have options not to work. I don't see that as an option. I've always struggled to kind of get by and make ends meet. I think that's how it is for a lot of people. I grew up poor. I'm fucking white. Where's my white privilege? I grew up on welfare. Okay, I'm just so tired of the indoctrination. I'm so tired of people complaining in the best time of the history of mankind that we still can't fucking get our shit together and live in the same fucking community without trying to tell other people how they should live their lives. Now, I'm not trying to say this is what you should do. What I'm trying to say is this is what you shouldn't do, trying to tell me what I should do with my life and my family. Okay, you guys the whole thing is we should be coming together. We should not be tearing each other apart. We should not be doing anything that causes more division. If we're not building trust through transparency, what are we doing? We're being shady. Now, was the election legit? I don't know. Was there some conspiracy or corruption to the Hunter Biden laptop and the foreign affairs of the Biden family? Should that have actually been investigated? I think so. I think there should have been an investigation, and I think that had there been an investigation, we would have found that what we did find out, which is the truth. We need to get back to reality. We need to get back to the reality truth, not your truth or my truth. The truth that exclaims and is transparent that I'm speaking to you right now. There's no filter between you and me and the camera. It's just you and me. Okay? And that's what we need to get back to. A handshake, my word means something. Businesses act like they don't even have time for you as a customer anymore. And people act like they're too good to even, have a life at all, like they're just victims. Every time someone looks at them the wrong way or farts in a way they don't like, that, they're a victim. And hate speech. And grow the fuck up, man. When I was a kid, if you got bullied, you beat their ass. And if you didn't, you kept getting bullied. But we didn't let kids decide whether they were boys or girls. We have now found there's so many things on so many levels here that really concern me. With the fatherless homes, the poverty number rising, the inflation rising, the pullout of Afghanistan. I haven't even got to the administration. I'm just kind of speaking generally to the general population about some of the fundamental basics of what has gotten us to where we are today in 2022 over hundreds and thousands of years, and all of a sudden we think we're just going to change that up. We're going to put women and men together in the workplace, not draw clear expectations about where the lines are with sexualization. Then we're going to tell women, you can just walk away. You can use men, and we're going to tell men and women that men can be used as a bread ticket, as a meal ticket. Men have to be responsible for children, whether they have a choice or not, and women are basically able to just pummel men through the family court system. They wanted to be treated like equals, and then when men finally started realizing, well, let's split this up evenly and let them do them and we'll do us, all of a sudden nobody wants to do that. All of a sudden all the women want to be men. They want to be treated as equal people, which we are not equal people. If we were equal, then pounds per square inch of a woman's punch would be equal to a man's, the average woman's and the average man's. That's not the case. And white men didn't make that shit up. Black women didn't make that shit up. Indian, Asian, Native, Hawaiian, Filipino people didn't make this shit up. This is human nature. This is reality. We shouldn't be letting trans athletes compete against the opposite natural sex that they are. We shouldn't be incentivizing birth control for women and tearing apart families with birth control. And then here's the thing that gets me. So some of these big corporate jobs will tell these women, hey, focus on your career. For the longest time, that's been the most important thing that we're teaching to young women is your job is the most important part of your life. And that's just not true. That's not true for anybody. That's definitely not true for the average female and male and the history, the fundamental basics of biology. Science does matter. So in the beginning, science mattered. For all of mankind, science has mattered until right now we're expected to just throw science out the window and act like parents don't matter, teachers don't matter, first responders don't matter, the rule of law doesn't matter, white people don't matter, everybody doesn't matter. The thing that gets me is some of these corporate places and what we're teaching these young women, it's poison. It's poison to the American culture. It's poison to the American country, and it's a poison to the American people. It causes division. These companies are telling women, we will help you freeze your eggs. We'll help you freeze your eggs. Focus on your career. We need you working right now. Then what they don't tell you is that you're taking a risk that your eggs may not be viable after they're frozen 10 years, 20 years down the road. Then what are you going to do? Do you think that corporate job is going to fucking be able to do anything for you at that point? And use your fucking heads. Think for yourself. Why is this corporate company, why is this great job putting their own interests before the well-being of the individual? Why aren't we thinking long term? Why are we still having all these problems? Anybody, somebody, anybody, I would love to know what you think, because to be honest, I've about had it with this shit. When they start messing with the parents and the kids and telling kids that they can chop off their penises and their breasts and think that that's okay. Like, we have no studies that show that that's okay. We have no long-term studies that show that any of this shit's okay. We had no studies that showed that these vaccines were safe for anyone. Lack of transparency, lack of leadership. Why would any of you take the fucking vaccine? You know, I talked to my cousin, and I'll make another video on this, but, you know, he was pressured, he had some health issues, and a lot of people were fear-mongered into taking this fucking vaccine that was not even approved. They rolled it out in an emergency case scenario. And to this fucking day, November 1st, there is still no definitive answer as to the origins of COVID. Then it was boosters. Then it was boosters. Then it was boosters. Then when the CDC was questioned and Mr. Fauci was questioned about royalties to the pharmaceutical companies and the way all this shit works, he said, we don't have to answer that. So there's just corruption from the top down, and the American people are suffering. We need real leadership, and we need someone like, I hate to say it, but Donald Trump in office. But people, please think for yourselves. I regret voting for Joe Biden. I can't imagine another 2 years. Look at the destruction in Ukraine. Look at North Korea's just waiting to fucking infiltrate fucking Taiwan. I mean, China's waiting to infiltrate Taiwan. North Korea's been waiting to infiltrate South Korea. Russia was waiting to infiltrate Ukraine. When Biden took office, what happened? It's been one fucking shit show after another. And I have some people that have the fucking audacity to sit there and say, this isn't a democratic thing. You know, I think it's un-American to be democratic at this point. I think it's un-American to be doing all of these things. Anything that could hurt anybody in this country. It's un-American. But you can't take this minority baton and run with it where you start pushing your ideologies onto the personal belief systems of families and communities and a country as a whole. It's just not fair. That's not how we do things. It's not being in touch with reality. And a lot of these ideologies are asking people to leave science behind, leave their rational, critical thinking behind, and just live in a dream world where they can have zero problems and they don't have to work hard. They don't have to gain experience. They don't have to be the best they can be because they can just be lazy fucking little pieces of dipshits. And they don't have to do anything but just be victims. Like, if that's what you aspire to be as a victim, you're useless. Now, here's something that, a lot of people need to think about, this Roe versus Wade thing, We need the death penalty for the rapists. Why the fuck would we give a death penalty to a fucking innocent blood of an unborn baby? Why would we grant that? I'm just beside myself that we aren't preserving and protecting life. All life. Why aren't we really getting down to the nitty-gritty and putting the responsibility where it belongs on unwanted pregnancies? Why don't we want to actually have equal rights in the family court system or throughout the country? Or have a clear line drawn on sexualization in the workplace? Because we don't fucking want that. We want the confusion. We want the hysteria. Otherwise, we wouldn't have anything to have ratings over with the mainstream media. Drop your comments below. I'm John Lee if you like videos like these. That almost covers it. I didn't even really go into detail about specifics. That's just the general consensus on where I think we are. I didn't even mention the border. I didn't even mention the bullshit from top down. I didn't even mention it. But there's my dad calling me, and supposedly, according to him, if it was up to him, I'd have never been born. So I probably should take this call. I'm on to the next one. Just as I suspected, that wasn't my dad calling to say he missed me or he loved me or he wondered what I was doing at all. He accidentally called me. He meant to call somebody else. That's the problem with our world today.